So 2 weeks ago, as of filming this, I made a community post on my community tab that says I haven't done any Q&A related stuff in a good long while. So this is completely unscripted, and you guys sent some very fun questions, so I'm going to do my best to answer them. So I'm going to limit questions to 3 per person because some of you asked up to, I think, 5 was the maximum. So it's going to be limited to 3. This is completely unscripted, and some questions are very similar to each other. So if there are similar questions to each other, I'm going to group them together under one. So with that out of the way, let's see what you guys have to ask. The first set of questions here, do you own any N scale? I mean, technically, I own like a tank car. I did have an N-scale train set years and years ago, but that was a Bachmann 440 and some coaches, and it was just not great. I mean, it ran fine, but it didn't look great, and I swapped to HO pretty quick after that. It was just too small for me to... Opinion on Bowser and MDC Roundhouse. Bowser is a manufacturer I really like. I know very little about their steam locomotives. MDC Roundhouse I know a little more about, but I've never owned one myself. I think they look good, and I do occasionally hop on eBay and look for a kit for a Roundhouse locomotive. Favorite B&O engine? It's the EM1. I am so stoked for Bachmann to start rerunning theirs very soon. Here's the group of 5, so I'm going to cut it down to 3 here. So, top 3 least favorite model train brands. This is a hard one for me because there's a lot of brands that I like, and then there's some that are going to be very obvious. So, I know this is going to be controversial, but Athearn's up there. I don't like Athearn's modern direction. I like what they make, but the problem is they're expensive, and I feel that the quality is a bit middling for what is a $200 locomotive. I bought this tunnel motor recently. The paint's chipping, the dynamic brake blister isn't fitted right, and it just feels kind of cheap in the hands. The other 2 least favorite is MTH and Lionel, for obvious reasons, overpriced. Just because it says Made in USA on the box does not mean it should be a $600 4-axle locomotive. Unpopular opinions, I've done an entire video on unpopular opinions, but apparently those are popular. So I'll give you my most unpopular opinion, I guess. I actually think that the Tyco and Bachmann era from like the 70s to the 90s, I actually really like. I think they brought a really fun charm to it. And the last one, what got you hooked on model trains and how did you start? What blunders did I make when being new, and what are some stories to tell from that? So I will cut out the blunders part. I'm going to make a whole video on getting into trains sometime soon. That's been in the works forever. But what got me hooked is I grew up in the greater Cincinnati area. So we had the Cincinnati Museum Center, which has a fantastic S-gauge layout in the museum center. And it's been there for years, and they just put it back in a couple years ago. And of course, opening day, I had to go just to see that again. They also had holiday trains presented by Duke Energy during December and early January. There's also Entertainment Junction. I've been going to that very, very frequently because of the unfortunate closure they are facing next year. I got started with trains years ago. I just kind of had a basic train set to start with, and it just kind of grew from there. The locomotive I still have, I've bothered to dig it out. There will be a photo of it. It was a Bachmann General train set that I got 10 years ago, actually. Hardest HO scale locomotive I've worked on. Ooh, this is a good one. This is actually a very recent project. This is a Lionel 0642. It is a 242, and it is awful in every sense of the word. Expect a video on that very soon. Prized HO scale locomotive. I think prized and favorite are 2 different things. My favorite is my Southern 440. My prized is my GP10. That is a completely unique model. It started life as a Paducah and Louisville GP10 by Intermountain, but now it is painted in Conrail blue for reasons we'll get into some other day. and it has dinosaur air filters instead of the horsed air filter. Smallest locomotive in my collection, I believe it's Stephenson's Rocket. It's definitely like the smallest size-wise, but I think if you put the tender on, it is slightly longer than my 040. I am not actually sure. So what train toy line do you really want to find more of? There's one that's been sitting on my project table forever just because I haven't really gotten time to really work with it. But I really want to find more of the Maisto, I don't know how to pronounce their manufacturer, on track series. They make a couple powered locomotives, and I needed some curves to really demonstrate them. I've got most of what I need, but I need a little more if I want to make that video. Favorite Hornby locomotive? I don't like Hornby at all, but I own exactly one locomotive from them, so I guess that's my favorite. It is the 2MT, and I have a lot of bad to say about that locomotive. Out of what I currently own for O-Gauge, what are some of my favorites? I want to say, like, for my 3 favorites, if I had to pick 3, it would probably be my GP30, the Williams one. That is just a quality locomotive. It runs super smooth, and it's very reliable. The Lionel 1001. I know nobody likes this locomotive, but I think it's a lot of fun. It is garbage, don't get me wrong, but it's a locomotive that runs super fast, and I don't feel bad when it derails. It's a good giggle, put it back on the track, it'll start right up again. And I haven't talked about this one, I don't think I've shown this one on my channel yet. Lionel 736 Berkshire, I'm a big Berkshire fan, so that was a really fun one to find. It's a 1950 release with magnet traction. So every single railroad car I own is just no match for this thing. I've watched it pull other locomotives away. Such a good locomotive. I wish they were cheaper. Everyone should own a Lionel Berkshire at some point. Favorite train toy I've made a video about so far? I really liked the Hot Wheels Railroad video. Mostly because it was something completely new to a lot of people. People were learning about this along with me, and that's a video that I do think I do want to redo at some point, because I've gotten a little more of the series thanks to a very, very kind viewer of mine. So I actually have some track now, and I want to do a more cohesive review of it with everything, correct some information. But that was very fun. It was fun to talk about something new, especially since I'm a big Hot Wheels fan, and I didn't even know they did trains until about a year ago when I actually made that video. So that was a super fun find, and I am glad that people are starting to look into it, and I think people find it interesting. All I really want to do is talk about things I like, and if someone's interested in it, that's a lot of, that makes me very happy. That makes me smile. What's a worse abomination to come up with than a Conrail railgun or Conrail Stephenson's Rocket? I have a friend who bought a Rivarossi Hudson and a Penske, and he wants to find a Penske K4. And what he wants me to do is he wants me to swap them aesthetically, so we have a Penske Hudson and a New York Central K4. I think that would be pretty cursed. I made a sketch on that a while ago, and I remember half the comments on it were just, favorite car, Mazda RX-7. The FD generation, specifically the 1999 to the 2002 version, where they gave it a bit of a facelift, little spoiler, new front bumper. It looks amazing. I very much want to own one in the future, although I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Favorite steam locomotive? Nickel plate 765, no question. Would you do a video on Geotrax? Geotrax is a toy train system that I've come to respect over my time looking into this. This is a system that I very much played with as a kid, and I think it's something that if I find time to make, I do it, but it's definitely not a top priority, because this seems to be a system that's mostly in the public, like, train enthusiast conscience. What I do have to say about it is I think it's an absolutely brilliant system, especially since the track is designed in such a way. I talked track geometry and all that in my powertrains video, but they designed the track in such a way that pretty much any way you build it, the track pieces will always line up. It's great. Favorite toy train system. This is a difficult one, because I know everyone's going to want me to say one of the more obscure ones that I seem to like talking about, but I always will say I think the classic wooden train toys is always going to be one of the best toy train systems ever. Every single manufacturer works with each other, and they just, if you want a train of any sort, you can probably find it. Here's a smattering of questions regarding why I like the GP30 so much and the nickel plate. And the main thing is these go hand in hand with each other, and the fascinations are not exclusive. I grew up in the greater Cincinnati area, and a lot of people are going to say, well, nickel plate didn't run there. That is true. However, there are two tourist railroad lines, tourist train operations in the area. And motive power on both is a nickel plate GP30, number 901 and 902. All three of the nickel plates GP30s that are preserved are also in Ohio. So there's a Berkshire up in Lima that I saw a couple years ago, and really the more and more I learn about the railroad through friends of mine, friends who work at these places or work with these locomotives, really helped me understand just how special of a railroad that really was. As far as the GP30 goes, it kind of fed off of that fascination with the nickel plate. I used to like steam engines a lot, but the more I learned about diesel locomotives, the more interesting they become to me. I'm a big car guy, so the whole internal combustion engine concept is very familiar to me, but learning about how it transfers that power to electricity to the motors, and the GP30 specifically, its history of being a locomotive built solely to compete with the GE locomotive, just made it super fascinating to me. And of course the styling makes it super unique. It was the first diesel locomotive I ever learned how to identify correctly every single time. What model train company has the best Conrail Blue? I genuinely do not have a good answer for this one. That may surprise you, but generally the story I've heard is Conrail Blue is this very interesting blue color, and the true color of it has actually been debated many years. But I think the closest I have is a scale trains unit, but even then I don't think that's exact. And then, of course, different manufacturers like Walthers especially. I have 3 Walthers bits, and none of the Conrail items are the same shade of blue. So I genuinely don't have a good answer for this, but Scale Train seems to get it pretty close. Although I think it's a little bit too saturated. What locomotive do I desperately want in my train collection? This is a hard one because I pretty much own all the locomotives I really wanted right now. I've got my tunnel motor, I've got my Jeep 30s, I've got my 462, my 282. Really, I'm just kind of sitting waiting on the Bachmann EM1 to re-release. Although right now, my focus is kind of shifted to the Rapido GP38. Someone brought one into my club, and it is an absolutely fantastic locomotive. I'm very interested in getting a Conrail Blue one to try and MU with my Scale Trains GP30. There's a couple questions regarding O-gauge stuff on the channel, and the main reason I haven't done any O-gauge stuff is just I don't have the time. When I set up the O-gauge stuff, usually it's up for a couple days and I can really get some time in, but I just haven't had the time to set it up, because to set up something for like the powertrain video, that took me probably 10 minutes. For O-gauge, I'm cleaning the tracks, prepping the locomotives. It's a fair amount of work for essentially what's not going to be up for too long. I do plan on making a follow-up video to my original O-gauge video, call it like O-gauge 1 year in or something like that, but really I don't expect to be making much O-Gauge stuff anytime soon. I may have some stuff out during Christmas because that's when the trains are out for more than 2 days, so I can actually get some filming time in. So I don't know when more of it's coming, but I do have plans in the future. I really want to talk about a couple of the items I've acquired since I made my last video on it. What inspired me to make videos? There's quite a few questions about this, like what made me start my channel and why did I make videos? Well, I just thought it would be fun. I wanted to talk about things that I hadn't seen people document before, because I'd look up like HO scale Conrail steam locomotive and you'd find a video of a review done 10 years ago and a couple pictures, but not much else. People didn't really know much about it. And so I think the research is a lot of fun to figure out, and the main inspirations I had for this to start making videos is none of them were train related, if that surprises anyone. I don't really watch a lot of train videos. I just don't find them that interesting. A lot of automotive YouTubers, and I kind of want to bring that more chaotic style to some future videos. I want to try and change it up a little bit just to make things a little more fun. Really, video making has just been fun for me, and I just make this in my spare time. It's a hobby, and I want to keep it that way. If I made a train set, what would it include? Loop a track, couple straights, power pack, and then probably for motive power, I'd pick some sort of GP unit, preferably a GP30. Just a couple cars, particularly things like box cars, flat cars, and gondolas, because those are open tops. You can put things in them. The box car should have a sliding door, I should add, just because that's kind of fun. Throw in some of the accessories that Bachmann includes in sets like the Chattanoogan Rail Chief, and that'd probably be my perfect train set, honestly. Favorite video to make? That's the Lionel HO review. When I started making videos, I'm like, well, if I get somewhere, I'll light a train on fire. And that was pretty much the crux of why I started blowing up the Lionel cars, was I'm just thinking, what are some of the various ways I can smash them into a million pieces? That was my favorite thing to make. It was my favorite thing to plot out exactly how to do it. And that was a bit stressful too, because I knew if I destroyed this railroad car and the camera did not get it, that was it. I couldn't show it. That car would have been destroyed. I'm not buying more. I'm happy it all worked out really well in the end, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed that. Someone called it the most brutal review ever. They're probably right, but it was a lot of fun to make because it was just kind of something I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to make. And watching it come together has been a lot of fun. And I'm very happy that people did seem to enjoy that. Those are all the questions I picked to answer, and I really don't know how to end this, so I think I'm just going to push the stop recording.